You're watching the India Development Debate. I'm Tamanna Inamdar, and Air India is on the block again. And this time, the government is hoping to avoid a 2018-like situation where no bidders turned up, so it's sweetened the deal. So instead of 76%, a prospective buyer can now own all 100% of Air India. Instead of taking on about 33,000 crores of debt, the bidders will need to absorb just 23,000 crores odd. So more stake, less debt, and more of the core business instead of allied operations. Will this be enough? But before we begin the debate, let's listen in to what Aviation Minister Hardeep Puri has to say on ensuring they have a success this time round.
After no bid for India was received in the first attempt made in 2018, we learned valuable lessons. We analyzed the critical areas to make the current disinvestment bid more attractive to the prospective interest bidders.
So the government now faces the challenge of finding a buyer for Air India in a tough market, but that may not be the only challenge. BJP Rajya Sabha MP Subramanian Swamy, through a tweet, has pretty much threatened to move court if the family silver, that is Air India, is sold. So will the Maharaja sail through this time round? To speak on this, I'm joined today by Jitendra Bhargav, former ED of Air India, Ashwini Mahajan, National Co-Convener of the Swadeshi Jagran Manch, Dheeraj Mathur, Advisor at Aerospace and Defence and a retired IAS officer, and Ajay Aftani, Founder at livefromalounge.com, someone who tracks aviation very closely as well. Welcome to all of you. Ajay, I'm going to begin with you because I saw sort of breakdown you put out today where you're talking about what the New Deal actually means. And I want you to sum it up for us before we begin. Is the New Deal truly better? What does the buyer get this time round?
Hi, Tamanna. Thank you for having me over again. This time around, Air India, as compared to the last time, is actually a better deal, but it's not in the sense that Air India is being carved out into various pieces this time around. And what the government's putting it on offer this time is the entire Air India operation, Air India Express, and the Air India ground handling operations, which it has along with Singapore Airlines. Sorry, not the one with Singapore Airlines, but the wholly owned Air India ground handling operation. Now, what if we dig deeper into this deal? There are a lot of things that are kind of still amiss and or incomplete. For one, Air India is offering all its planes on offer that it has on its books. But if you start to investigate the fleet, all the aircraft that Air India currently has on its books are old aircraft. You know, they're more than 10 years old, and they are largely all made on older technology. So newer aircraft that have come in the market offer 15% more fuel savings. In this case, if you're going to buy the airline and keep the old aircraft on your books, you're basically paying more for fuel. So it's a Hobson's choice if you want to keep the old aircraft or dispose off with them when you kind of bring on the carrier. The second very interesting part is Air India gets all the government business on official travel at this point of time. The government has not guaranteed this business after the Air India stake sale is completed. This is a business in millions of dollars. It's not chimp change. So for anyone who is trying to buy the airline, this would have been a nice sweetener to keep on for a few years, but it's not something that is being done. And thirdly, what you're really buying is slots. You're buying existing airline operations.
Right.
But here is the thing. The government is, again, not giving you guarantees for a longer period. They say, you know, after 6 months, these slots may or may not be yours. I know how the industry works. You basically continue to operate a slot. It continues to be yours. But this is not language that should be in a preliminary information document, because it might get people to be discouraged from investigating this offer further.
All right.
So those are some of the things that hold you back.
So interesting. Ajay has laid the ground here. I want to open up the debate. Let me come to you, Jitendra Bhargav, on some of the points he's put out. So now more than ever, the government needs to sell Air India.
You see, there's no denying the fact that the government needs to be successful this time around.
Yeah.
And the very fact that it has gone ahead and made certain concessions which were considered as impediments in the first previously flopped exercise. But there are certain points that I need to clarify because the public must know at large. For Ajay to say that the average age of fleet is 10 years is a wrong statement. It's 8 years. Dreamliners are the efficient aircraft. They are there for the long haul. They're operational. It is not only an operational airline that is going to be offered, but look at the advantage that an airline gets, anybody which requires it. You have the farthest reach from India as far as Indian carriers are concerned. Over 51% of the share is of India,
Yeah.
Air India. Now, when you have such a large thing on operating and considering the fact that the moment a private entity takes control of Air India, there is a jump as far as productivity is concerned, efficiency is concerned, better utilization of resources is concerned, so you add to the bottom line. But one single gain, whichever airline acquires it, it gets catapulted to the league of mega carriers. It gets counted amongst Air France, Lufthansa, British Airways, Delta Airlines, and all those things. And the other aspect, a carrier, an Indian carrier which does not acquire will never be able to become the number one carrier. So there is an incentive for an Indian carrier to build and take on. I've maintained consistently that government lacks marketing skills. It is not putting the best foot forward. First, it painted Air India as a white elephant. Everybody in public knows what is the debt, what are the losses, but nobody knows what are the assets.
Yeah.
Now, question is, you put the best foot forward and then go about it. In this statement that Minister gave out today, X number of permanent total employees, 50% of them would retire in the next 5 years. Now, they could have gone further and said, okay, now of these permanent employees, we are now talking about X quantity are pilots who are as productive as anybody because you know you're going to be operating the same aircraft when
Right.
you deliver.
Right.
Cabin crew, this is the age bracket that we're talking about, who can be retrained from what Air India's current practices. So there are good features as far as the memorandum is concerned.
I'm sure the government has been pushing hard. I mean, there have been roadshows all over the world. They have been pushing
Come
hard.
on, road shows is one thing, but doing it successfully, efficiently,
Yeah.
putting the best foot forward is another thing. Question is, who has the total knowledge, wisdom as far as the aviation industry is concerned? Don't tell me the bureaucrats in the ministry or somebody heading Air India knows it as good, or he carries conviction when he's doing a road show abroad.
Okay, no, so I don't know. I don't know about, how much conviction they have, but they have been pushing pretty hard. But two aspects which come out here. Let me come to Ashwini Mahajan on this. I'll come back to you in a bit, Ajay, because I'm sure you want to respond to what Jitendra Bhargav said. But Ashwini Mahajan, Jitendra Bhargav talks about all the assets that Air India has. Now, there is a stream of thought which says that if it's so good, why sell it? Why sell the family silver? I'm, of course, referring to Subramanian Swamy's tweet today, which actually threatens going to court if the government goes ahead with this sale. Where do you stand on this?
I'm with Mr. Bhargav in this case, that it's a valuable asset. And there are so many assets of Air India about which they have not been accounted for. There are 2,500, more than 2,500 air slots, and there is a market for sale, there is a market for leasing, and therefore, if you want to get good price, then that is not the way the government has been doing.
But you're okay
The
with
minister was
selling?
saying this is a bad
You're
airline.
okay with
It
selling?
has to be sold out. Let me tell you. You see, they said ki we have to sell it, otherwise it will have to be closed down.
Yes.
You see, that kind of utterances from the minister is not called for. Now, Piyush Goyal ji has said very clearly that it is something which he would have also bid for had he not been the minister. It has got the air slot, it's got the bilaterals, which no other airlines has got because of the monopoly of Air India in the past. Now, the kind of scenario which has been created is not so good. What we are for, we are not against disinvestment of Air India. What we are saying is that it has to be sold through equity route. You can bring about certain changes in the law, and you can have a IPO for Air India. We have already had an example in the history that British Airways was disinvested in the same way. Like they revived British Airways and then they came out with IPO which was oversubscribed by 11 times. You see, so that is the way we should sell it off. We have been committing mistakes, and I understand that government should not commit more mistakes in strategic disinvestments, because it will bring bad name to the government also. So if you don't sell your assets properly, these are the assets built over the period of
No, so
time with
Mr.
the
Mahajan,
taxpayers.
you're usually a very
So
clear
we must
person, sir, who doesn't
safeguard
pull
the
punches.
interest of the people
I wonder
at large.
why you're softening your blows today. Just to understand very clearly, are you okay with the current plan of selling 100% stake in Air India?
No, no, we are not for it.
And why not?
We are against it. What we are saying is that if you want to make this investment, it has to be through equity route, not through the strategic route. So as the government has been doing, this is a bad idea of selling Air India through strategic route.
Okay.
So you are bound to make mistakes in this case.
Dheeraj Mathur, I want you to come in. A wide variety of views that we've heard over here on the show this evening. And if you can hear me, Ashwini Mahajan saying that, come up through disinvesting some equity. He is suggesting an IPO route. Ajay over there is talking about how even the New Deal doesn't seem like it's going to get too many buyers. And Jitendra Bhargav talking about all the assets which are not being pushed. How optimistic are you about a buyer now turning up for Air India?
There are just two, three things that I would like to say. One is that, of course, as the Prime Minister says, government has no business to be in business, and the airlines industry is a very competitive service industry. You have to be agile, you have to be nimble, you've got to take very quick decisions. And when government owns a company which is running an airlines, it's not possible to take quick commercial decisions, because there are processes that are associated and built in to in fact, provided for in the Constitution, that mandate certain procedures to be followed, and those procedures take time. And then, of course, people go around saying that bureaucrats are creating delays, but those are the rules, and they have to be followed. So the government has to get out of it. Now, it's not a bad asset. Certainly, it's not a bad asset. There are all the good things that have been given in the PIM, and some of which one of the earlier speakers mentioned. So the fact is that it is a good asset, but government can't leverage the full potential, and which is why the government is making what I feel is a very sincere effort to disinvest. Now, will we find a buyer? I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't really say.
No, what's the likelihood in your view?
There are a couple of issues that.
What's the likelihood in your view,
Well,
Mr. Mathur?
look, if any of the Indian, so there is all the Indian airlines who have an aspiration to become a global player are potential buyers. I think because the government hasn't lifted the 49% cap of ownership by a foreign carrier, so it'll have to be one of the Indian airlines, that exist, which are doing, some of whom are doing very well at the scale of operation that they're at. But if they want to move to the next level, this is possibly the best opportunity for them. So to that extent, yes, of course, there are buyers. And look, as far as the market is concerned also, it's not that industry doesn't have money. It's, people are maybe delaying investment decisions.
Yeah.
So I don't really believe liquidity is an issue. And I also believe that the existing airlines are all potential candidates for buying a stake.
Okay, let me just open this up about who the buyers are. Ajay, you want to come in on the potential buyers question, because
consortium with a
there is Yes, there is an airline which is waiting to be sold since over a year, and its name is Jet Airways. And as days go by, it looks less and less attractive. But you know, there are reports which keep popping about someone who's interested, and no one turned up. No one turned up for Air India in 2018. No one's been interested in Jet Airways all of these days. So who do you see stepping up to the plate, especially with the conditionality that there has to be an Indian owner?
I think before I give out names, Tamanna, I want to put out a couple of things to set context. There are a lot of airlines up for sale around the globe right now. You know, Malaysia Airlines is in trouble. Malaysia Airlines up for sale. Air India is one more. Jet Airways is another one. So, you know, there are a lot of airlines going around the world which want to raise capital. Alitalia is one which always has been in trouble for many years. So, you know, there may be a lot of money in the market, but that money is chasing the right valuation, and that right valuation is going to come at Air India or not, we don't know. The second thing is, because you mentioned Jet Airways. Jet Airways was a much better run operation than Air India, I believe. I think the best way to move forward on an Air India sale is to carve it out even further. You know, sell the national operations to somebody who really wants to buy national operations and gain a big foothold in India.
Yeah.
This is my view, mind you, not formed today. This has been my view since the 2018 process as well, that somebody who wants to buy the international operations should be allowed only to buy the international operations, and so on and so forth. So you carve out the company even in smaller pieces, and then allow people to buy what they want. Right now, an Indigo or a Vistara may want to buy the international assets, but they can't. They have to buy everything else along. So that may discourage bidding in this current round of bidding. Having said that, there's one more important point I want to bring on the table, is the 23,000 crores of debt you want to absorb.
Yes.
Okay, now imagine, this is the same argument I've used during Jet Airways. This is the same argument I used 2 years back with Air India. The amount of debt that is being asked to take over is basically good enough to start a new carrier altogether. You know, I know there'll be delays in acquiring aircraft and acquiring slots. Here, Air India is kind of giving it to you all. The only thing that Air India is giving you is things in the present context. So, but if you had that kind of money, you could just like Vistara's.
You have a lot of reactions coming. Into what Ajay is saying about prospective buyers. Let's talk about prospective buyers. Yes.
No, before the buyer, because unless you put the facts in perspective, the debt is a critical element. And Ajay has dwelt on it, that there's a large chunk of debt that the acquirer will take, and that may not be as low or good enough to start a new airline. Let's put it this way. You see, let's not forget what this debt is. And I wish the government had clarified it. That you are going to be transferring aircraft onto the new buyer. The aircraft average life is 17 years. You repay the loans for the aircraft for 17 years. Average age being 8, so there are still 9 more years to go for the aircraft. So accordingly, repayment to the Exim Bank and others from whom the loans have been taken is repayment. So this loan gets transferred to the new acquirer along with the assets. So it's nothing unusual about it. The potential,
So are you saying the debt is only for aircraft?
Yeah, because that is why a large chunk of the debt has been transferred to the special purpose vehicle. This is the key element that the government must be putting it in greater clarity and say, this is what we are talking about it. Now, when you look at who's going to be the potential acquirer, coming to the question, let's not look at Air India in isolation. Look at what India offers. Huge growth market for the next decades. Now, that is where you reap the advantage. You have got an operational airline. It's easier to expand the operations. You got slots everywhere.
Mr. Bhargav, the fact is Indian aviation is one of the scariest places over the last few decades.
Please let me explain. World over.
Is it not the place where airlines come to die?
World over, airlines operate on wafer-thin margins. Please remember one thing. In my time, in the earlier time, I'm talking about the 90s, 68% was deemed a good load factor. You were making profit at that time. Now you're doing 80% and not making profit.
Yeah.
Because the fares have gone down, the yields have gone down. Now that is what the reality is. But India has the large number, please remember, large number. Now when you said Jet Airways, and Jet Airways should be a determinant factor whether Air India will get somebody to buy.
No, I'm not not saying it's a determinant factor. I'm saying that let's look at the facts. As optimistic as we have to look at the facts. Ashwini Mahajan, who would you like seeing running Air India? For 3 years, they have to keep the brand. After that, they don't need to. They don't need to. It's not clear what they will do with all of these employees. But they have to run it as Air India for at least 3 years. Who do you see, who do you think will come and step up to the plate?
You see, this is immaterial. In fact, this is such a big asset. I am not very very optimistic about it that it will be sold. Rather, I will not be pessimistic like this that it will be sold. It is such an asset which is very difficult to be sold. And so far as this whole deal is concerned, we are not for it, and it has to be sold through equity route. There is no other way. And if it is done like this, it's very easy to really continue with this with an efficient management. The kind of thing which the government was doing is not at all which should have been done.
But
Like
Mr. Mahajan,
the new
I'm sorry
CMD
to
was
say
sent,
you're going back into
he
the
was sent
past.
with a
The
mandate
government
to
has already
run
tried
it.
and failed at running Air India time and again, has said now someone needs to buy it or we will shut it down. I mean, that time has passed. The government doesn't see
No,
any merit in
this is-
running an
this is
airline
again-
at huge losses.
this
The
is-
industry
this
has
is-
moved forward.
No, I'm not saying that the government should run it, but at least whenever the asset has been created, there is an asset management that has to be done. And this is lacking in this whole deal of selling Air India. This is no way you sell a particular enterprise in this manner. Minister saying that it has to be closed down, and the voices are coming in. You see, I'm not saying that the government should run this, but at least you bring it on track and then bring IPO and sell it off. It's no way like this huge asset which you can sell like this. It is impossible.
Okay, the big words coming in there, impossible. Okay, Dheeraj Mathur wants to respond very quickly and then I'll come to you, Jitendra Bhargava. Yes, Mr. Mathur.
Yeah, yeah. One, who's going to buy the shares of a loss-making company that's gone in for an IPO? I mean, let's get real here. Second thing is, we keep saying that bloated staff, actually, they haven't been recruiting for the last 10, 15 years. They're actually understaffed. They're not at all overstaffed. In fact, this is one issue with Air India. They don't have an expansion plan. They don't have a new aircraft on order. So the fact is that it's only a strategic buyer who's going to step up to buy Air India. And why would they want to buy Air India? They would want to buy Air India. Those slots that Air India has, it's not something that they've been given by government mandate. A lot of these slots have been negotiated with different airports in India, the private ones, and abroad, certainly. So those slots aren't going away. So all the things that have been discussed about Air India as slots, about flying rights and bilaterals, etc., all of them are going to stay. And I come back to what I said again. For anyone who wants to really enter the Indian aviation space, this is an excellent opportunity. And anyone who wants to leverage Air India's international operations, I know Indigo in the past has said that we are only interested in the international operations,
Yes.
and you let us just buy those. Now it's a decision that government has taken. They've bundled both together. And that's a perfectly just legitimate decision. I mean, one can always argue and say that this isn't correct. It should be this way. It would be that way. It should be diced this way. It should be spliced this way. After a significant amount of deliberation, this is a complex issue, and the government is trying to do something in honest earnest, and it is the right thing that the government is doing. We all generally agree that all the people here and even outside tend to agree that the government must exit this. So I think we should look at it. There are a lot of positives in the PIM, in the offer this time round compared to last time. The government has learned its lessons. So I personally feel that this is a very good opportunity for somebody who wants to expand in India and leverage Air India abroad to
Who is
to
this
buy,
person? Who is this
a
airline?
great
Who is
brand,
this set of
great
bidders?
assets, and even very good employees.
Yes,
And as I said,
yes.
well, just to answer that, it is those Indian airlines who have these aspirations, and we know who they are. And I really don't want to get into naming names.
But there are not so many.
And it's
there are not
also
so
some
many.
of the
We can
foreign
name them.
airlines
Jitendra
who have
Bhargav,
been
you can
looking
name
at
some of
India
them. Who do
and
you think
entering
has
India.
the might, the ability, and the really the will to want to acquire Air India in its entirety? One of the
Let me
biggest
put it
players
this
have
way.
said,
Any airline which is smart, which has vision, and knows that the only way to grow and grow fast is by acquiring Air India. A ready-made airline, 18% market share, let's put it this way, to international market share, global network, and you only have to add. And as I keep saying repeatedly, private sector efficiency, productivity, better cost control, better revenue management gives you a 10% plus.
How is you keep
about.
saying this every time we talk. That's why I must ask you, even though we are ending the show, how will a private entity or a private management taking over a behemoth like Air India tomorrow suddenly change its culture and the way it's working over all of these years?
This is simple.
It's just
Tamanna, since you've asked this question, let me answer it. Revenue kind of a thing. Where have you seen Air India's commercial team getting into the market and selling Air India? They don't. A private sector company does. They offer better deals, more efficient deals to corporates, etc., and get it. Productivity. When do you expect that the government company to say, we will get the unions to agree to these kind of working norms, which can be benchmarked against the best airlines? You cannot do it. I've been director HR of Air India. I know about it, the kind of animosity or thing that you build up with the unions, etc. No, you cannot. So this is where I say, don't underestimate the potential that Air India offers, provided you have commercially. Why do we say, Dr. Subramanian Swamy, since we mentioned it in the beginning, he's articulated today that government ownership, they have not allowed government, the chairman to operate the airline commercially, etc. That for me is the single reason why government should be taken away from Air India and let Air India function commercially, customer-friendly manner and efficiently.
Well, the thought arises, and no, I'm not batting for Ashwini Mahajan over here. He is hoping it doesn't go through. But the thought arises, if it was just about changing the way the place is run, does it need to be sold off to run it better?
Again, Matamana, give me just half a minute here. What are we looking forward to? In 2013, when I wrote my book, I said 1 in 7 passengers are patronizing Air India. 17% market share. Today, you are under 13. Another 4 years down the line, private sector adding capacity at a frantic pace. Air India's front staff cannot do the same thing. You get marginalized. At 6, 7, 8%, what do? You get into irrelevance. Now, do we want Air India to be an irrelevant airline in the Indian airspace after having dominated it for decades? The answer is no. Therefore, this investment is necessary.
Mr. Bhargav, I'm sorry. I know you get emotional about Air India. I understand where you're coming from, but let's talk reality. Today, what matters is that the government, creates resource revenues where it really needs to. It's cash strapped, makes no sense to run this airline, and that emotional attachment which you and perhaps many others feel may not be shared by all. Let's give ourselves that reality check and hope for the best. As I end on this note, thank you so much to all of you for joining us. We'll be watching very closely the successes or lack of successes that this whole process sees over the next few weeks.